The World Health Organization recommends that babies be exclusively breastfed for the first 6 months of life. Yet it has been reported that many mothers in Africa do not solely breastfeed their infants due to lifestyle and lactation challenges. Today we'll explore how breastfeeding can contribute significantly to a child's survival and look at options for new mothers to either produce their own milk or get access to safe breast milk. We will discuss with experts on this topic, and we will share the perspective of women who have experienced the challenges of breastfeeding. Hello and welcome. I am Oriani Tangishaka, and this is Our Voices. I'm very happy today to welcome back my co-host Simenyesha Koye, who was on vacation. Welcome, Lily.
Thank you so much. I missed it.
I missed
the show. I missed everybody here.
It was a very well-needed break, wasn't it?
Very much needed.
Yeah.
It was about time that I reconnect with family, you know, with the air in Africa. So it was a very beautiful trip, and hopefully I'll be sharing, you know, my experiences throughout the different shows.
Yes, Ethiopia and Rwanda.
Ethiopia and Rwanda.
Very nice. Yes. Well, about today's topic, what do you think about breastfeeding? What is your opinion?
Oh my God, I always say that breastfeeding is the most beautiful experience that exists in nature in general. You know, being a woman and being able to feed your baby just with your body and be, you know, a source of nutrition, a source of comfort, you know, exclusively for 6 months, it's just magical.
Yeah, it definitely is.
It is beautiful, it's magical, and I also love that connection, you know, when you are breastfeeding, when he looks up at you, that eye connection and that bond you create through the process.
You fed your son, right? You breastfed your son.
I did for 5 months.
Okay.
You know, in the beginning I had a good supply, but later, you know, it was decreasing, and I had that feeling like I was letting down my baby.
Oh yes, girl. You know, I had 3 boys, and I was fortunate enough to also breastfeed them. But just like you said, I breastfeed them between 5 to 6 months. I thought it would go at least a year, but when it started sort of drying out after 5 months to 6 months, I felt so bad. I was like, wait a minute, like, should I drink more water? Should I drink more gikoma? You know, drink a porridge. Back in
traditional drinks.
I did all the cookies, I did all the teas, and then I felt bad. I felt like, you know what, you know, I should be doing more. I should get more milk. But one thing I heard is that boys do drink a lot. So even what I had,
that's the reason.
I had frozen some milk in the freezer, but it ran out.
That way we know that breastfeeding, as beautiful as it is, it's also challenging. You know, I know mothers who cry because they were not able to breastfeed. I mean, which is okay. I mean, you can always give the supplements, and that's also fine. But you know, that guilt, that feeling you get as a mother because you don't breastfeed. But even when you are breastfeeding, waking up every 2 hours, pumping, you know, it's very exhausting. Yes. And you are giving a lot to your baby, and you need to take care of yourself at the same time, and we mostly don't.
A community of breastfeeding women in Uganda is giving hope to mothers struggling to feed their newborn babies and keep them alive. However, with a growing demand for breast milk, the community members are finding it hard to recruit more breastfeeding mothers willing to donate their own milk to new mothers who find it hard to produce enough milk for their newborns. Halima Athumani and Mukasa Francis have this report from Uganda, capital city, Kampala.
In March, complications with Mbabazi Resti's pregnancy led doctors to perform an emergency cesarean section and deliver her child at 36 weeks, about a month early. Resti then suffered a cardiac arrest and was placed on life support. During recovery, she could not breastfeed her baby, and so the hospital was substituting formula.
He was given powdered milk, but unfortunately, he faced a condition called NEC stage 1, whereby he wouldn't digest the powdered milk well.
Resti reached out to the Atta breast milk community, and the baby started getting breast milk from a donor. Rachel Akujiziwe is the administrator at Atta breast milk community. She says the organization was started in 2021 by a mother whose recently born child passed away.
Because she had a supply, she asked the doctors, where do I put the milk? They told her, all we can do for you is to give you tablets to dry it up. She said, but you see, I needed it. I mean, there should be a mother or so a baby who needs the breast milk.
The breast milk is from mothers who have babies between 0 to 6 months old, but it's not easy to become a donor. Akujiziwe says donating mothers can't be on drugs and must undergo blood tests.
The blood work that we do, we check for HIV, we check for hepatitis, we check for syphilis, we check for CMV. They are screened before they start donating, this milk.
Sadia Hussein Mulangwa is a mother of 2 and found her body was producing more milk than her babies needed. That is how she learned about the breast milk community and says she is a committed donor.
The fulfillment that I will get from this, knowing that I'm saving a life somewhere or giving better health or just a better living to a helpless child, I'm like, what bigger sadaka is there than that, really?
The Atta Breast Milk community says they have helped over 500 babies over the past 3 years, providing 800 litres of milk from close to 150 donors. Halima Athmani, VOA News, Kampala, Uganda.
Thanks, Halima and Mukasa, for this report. Now, to look deeper into some of the challenges women on the continent face in providing life-giving breast milk to their newborns and what new mothers should be aware of, we turn to Ms. Mili Karina, Chairperson of Kenya Association for Breastfeeding. Ms. Mili Karina, welcome to Our Voices.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Of course, it's great to have you. So we just heard one of the reasons to why women don't breastfeed, even if they wanted to, which is not being able to produce enough milk. So are there any other barrier to new mothers to why they cannot breastfeed? And is that why we are seeing more of breastfeeding banks opening up?
Thank you for that question. Yes, breastfeeding is not always easy and it does have challenges, but we are aware, and even as you said, or your co-host mentioned, that it is important to breastfeed our children, and it's the first health measure for all children who are born and are supposed to be exclusively breastfed for up to 6 months. That's according to the World Health Organization, and up to 2 years and beyond. Now, unfortunately, as you've mentioned, there are challenges, and one is a low milk supply. But there are times where it's actually a perceived low milk supply and not an actual low milk supply, because a perceived milk supply is you're imagining your breasts should feel heavy, should feel engorged, but they don't. So you imagine that your milk supply is low, but yet it's not. So you reach out for breast milk substitutes and you start supplementing your baby with that. And unfortunately, you end up actually having an actual low milk supply because it's demand and supply. The more you demand from your breast, the more your breast will produce milk, which will increase the supply. But now if you introduce other supplements, then that will go low. There are also other challenges as to painful breastfeeding. So they're not complaining of a low supply, but they are attempting to put the baby on the breast and they actually experience excruciating pain. That shouldn't be so. And this is something that healthcare workers need to educate and create awareness among mothers, especially even beginning from the antenatal period. When the mother is pregnant, we need to start talking to her and letting her know, this is what breastfeeding entails. This is what exclusive breastfeeding entails. If you do have pain, ensure you're positioning and attaching your baby on the breast correctly. Now, other than pain, which is a major challenge that causes mothers to stop breastfeeding, there's also issues such as moms with inverted breasts, nipples or flat nipples, moms who need to return to work. So we know exclusive breastfeeding is up to 6 months. But even here in Kenya, I'm from Nairobi, Kenya, even here in Kenya, you find that the rates of breastfeeding decrease when the mothers return to work. Right. So currently it's at 60%.
Right.
According to the
yes, that's exactly what we're hearing, that the number is decreasing of women breastfeeding. And well, let's shift a little bit. We did talk about hurting nipples and other things that can cause them not to breastfeed, but what about those who choose not to breastfeed because they fear that the shapes of their breasts may change after breastfeeding? Is that a misconception? And if not, would you say that that notion undermines the health benefits of breastfeeding a baby?
Absolutely. I mean, science and data have proved that breast milk contains all the nutrients the baby needs, all the macro, all the micronutrients for the first 6 months. But that's a myth or a misconception with regards to breastfeeding, that if I breastfeed my baby, then my anatomy or my look is going to change. I'm going to have saggy boobs. I will tell you what mainly causes it is pregnancy and the pregnancy hormones. So the fact that she's been pregnant and will produce hormones that will help to relax her pelvis in preparation for labor and birth, some of those hormones will find themselves in the mammary glands, and they may cause a bit of sagginess, even a great decrease, a really rapid decrease or rapid increase in weight will cause the saggy boobs. So I want to debunk that myth. That breastfeeding will cause that.
So in line
it's
with this challenge you briefly mentioned, can you tell us about the new proposed bill of 2024 in Kenya? What does it entail? What is it about?
So it's an exciting bill, and many of us lactation support professionals are really excited about it. And it's a breastfeeding mothers bill that's been proposed that aims to protect and support breastfeeding by providing a legal framework for mothers who wish to breastfeed their babies in the workplace or wish to express their breast milk in the workplace. So it ensures that these mothers, what it states that they should not experience any discrimination just in accessing, opportunities of employment. These mothers should not be suffering in terms of being able to want to breastfeed their babies while at work. It is possible and it should be allowed, and all workplaces need to provide spaces that are comfortable, that are private, not a store, not the bathroom, where mothers can be able to sit and actually express their breast milk or breastfeed their babies. So these nursing rooms the bill says that these mothers need that access.
That sounds amazing. That would be amazing. And hopefully everything goes through for that bill. Well, we have to stop it right here, Mrs. Mili Karina. We truly appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for taking time to be on Our Voices.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
It's now time for a short break. When we return, we'll hear about some of the breastfeeding support systems in places like Nairobi. We ask you to share your thoughts on this topic on our social media platforms at VOA Africa. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Use the hashtag VOA Our Voices. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Mudu, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
You are with Our Voices. Welcome back. Today we are discussing how breastfeeding can contribute significantly to a child's survival and look at options for new mothers to either produce breast milk or get access to it. Let's now hear about available support systems and tips of breastfeeding from Whitney Dula, a lactation and postpartum specialist at the Mamas Dula LLC here in Maryland. Ms. Dula, thank you so much for being here and for joining us.
And of course, she brought some props for us, a baby, and This is just to show us what breasts will be looking like, I guess, with a...
So why don't we just get right into it? Like, what are some of the tips of breastfeeding? What are the challenges? What are we doing wrong, or what are we doing right?
Yes, especially for new mothers.
Yes.
So I believe my colleague that was on before hit a lot of the points. It's a combination of things, I think, that cause those challenges and complications. A lot of times it comes down to the education and support that is available for families leading into the birth. We spend a lot of time, I think, focusing on the birth, and then not on the postpartum and the care and the keeping of the mother afterwards. And unfortunately, like, as we're here in the United States, and I'm sure, you know, we see these things happening, you know, in Africa and other places as well, Asia, and as we get more industrialized, as more families are going back to work, you know, as more families have probably had generational use of formula, that connection and that innate understanding of how to breastfeed has gotten a little lost in translation.
Whitney, before we hear tips on breastfeeding, let's hear what some women on the streets of Nairobi and Abuja think about responsibilities of mother breastfeeding and how long they think should be done.
A mother should breastfeed her baby for 2 years, maximum and minimum of 2 years. Reasons being that breast milk has all the essential nutrients a child needs, especially for brain development and also for every form of development for a child. And then the breast milk has already been formed by the mother's body and broken down to the barest absorption units for the baby. So it helps for the baby's digestive system to, you know, grow after childbirth.
The emotional support, the presence. The father should always be there when he can, actually. And if he cannot be, let them have an understanding. Let the wife understand that he doesn't have the means to be there, but he should always be supportive in any way he can. It's not just by providing the financial and other needs, like giving her things, but you're not there, but you should always be there.
I think a child should be breastfed between 6 months to 1 year. And I think because that is very good for their brain development, and also that bond between mother and child, that's a very good period. But yeah, even longer, better, but ideally 6 to 1 year.
I think a child should be breastfed for 1.5 years. The reasons why I feel that is because breast milk has a lot of nutrients as compared to giving them packaged milk, and it will make them stronger, and it also creates a bond between a child and their parent.
For me, I think first of all, a child should be breastfed for 6 months exclusive, without water, without food, without anything. And for me, I think, again, you do it for 2 years.
Let me tell you my experience after giving birth in a hospital. My baby couldn't latch in the beginning, and nobody really showed me. Of course, the nurses came and told me, this is how you do it, you know, just keep on practicing and it will come. And I left and I got home and he was still not latching. I had to pump the first few days. I had a lot of supply, but he was not really, you know, directly getting it. So it was frustrating me, and I was thinking like, I'm failing my baby, there is something wrong I'm doing. And I used to cry a lot about it until I went to a lactation specialist and they had to show me how to do it.
Right, and so I have to remind families a lot to remember that breastfeeding takes two people. Is one of the few processes in life where it's not all on one person. Your baby is an individual themselves, and sometimes there are things that can be going on with the baby physically. They might have had some, you know, distress within the birth itself. If you had a baby that got stuck, or if it was a C-section, the medications that we get in labor also affects the baby as well. So sometimes when they come out, they're a little out of sorts as well, and that can cause an early complication with breastfeeding, for sure. There are things like tongue and lip ties. We all have, you know, the little string under our tongue, the little string under our lip, and that's supposed to be there, but for some children, it's more of a, it's more restrictive and can cause breastfeeding difficulties as well. And then there can also be actual physical and developmental differences between what is expected normal anatomy and what the child might actually have, and that can also affect breastfeeding.
I really appreciate you saying that it takes two people, me and the baby. So it's not just me.
It is not just you. Sometimes it is the baby.
That's why we need people like her.
We need a Now, the way you're holding, just briefly show us how, just one of the tips of how you should be holding your baby in terms of the baby looking at you, the baby feeling comfortable. Show us briefly with the baby that you have in your hands, how you would do it as a new mother.
So we're going to pretend this is a newborn baby. This is one of our demo babies, and she is weighted, as you learned.
It's a very heavy baby.
She's a heavy baby, so this would be about the size of maybe about a month-old baby.
Okay.
And one of the things is thinking about how we operate when we're eating and drinking. A lot of times I see moms and they're holding the baby kind of on their back, yes. And then the baby has to try to strain and turn their head, and we're contorting the bodies. So I always tell people, your body held this baby very tight and very close in the womb for 9 or 10 months. Okay. We need to keep that same mindset on the outside. Really so bring them very close. Okay. Bring them very close and turn them as if you still have that umbilical cord attaching you, so that they're very tight, belly to belly on the outside.
Belly to belly.
Belly to belly. And make sure that their ears, their shoulder, and their hip is in alignment. Now, babies can have a natural curve. You can curve them around your body, but this should be kind of like in a nice straight line, or think of like the stars. It's like a nice constellation, because if they're turning their neck, it's uncomfortable. You know, if you've ever had to wake up in the middle of the night and get a sip of water, you can't.
Don't you wish you knew this stuff?
The more you know. You know, in the middle of the night when you wake up and you get a sip, you don't turn your head like this. We sit up. We want to get a nice extension through the neck, so that we can, you know, tilt our heads back and open our jaw nice and wide. If the baby's turning like this, they can't open their mouth very wide. It gets kind of stuck. So we want them super close so that when they come to the breast, they're not having to twist, they're not tight, they can be relaxed, and they like postural support. So if we're holding them nice and tight and close, it makes them feel less insecure. They feel stable, and they'll be a little bit more relaxed instead of kind of wobbling around and flailing around.
So I want you to talk to us about the actual intimacy. Let me hold the baby.
Absolutely.
And then talk to new mothers, especially young mothers. We find ourselves like this. And are you doing good? And we're just doing nothing, and the baby's not even doing what you ask. So, like, talk to us about intimacy with the baby.
So that has to be developed as well. You know, I think for some people, you can't really connect with something until you see it. So even though we feel the baby on the inside, especially for partners and the extended family as well, that's why it's so critical for them to have that time, that one-on-one time. So one of the things a lot of places will encourage now is what we call skin-to-skin or kangaroo care. So when the baby is getting fussy, when they're sleepy, when we're overstimulated as parents, bringing that baby in close, allowing them to stay on our chest, either bare skin, if you're wearing a robe, you know, open your robe so that the baby can be literally their body, their face, their skin up against your heartbeat, and so that they can hear the sounds that they were used to hearing when they were in the womb. That's a really helpful technique. Is actually something we highly encourage for babies that were born, say, preterm or premature. It helps regulate their temperature, it helps regulate their heart rate, it helps regulate their brains. So it's critical not only for their emotional development, but their physical development as well. And it can be really calming for the parent as well. You know,
to shut down the stress,
and just focus on the baby. And we do have to be more conscious, I think, now than previous generations, because there are so many distractions. So, you know, we don't want to drop the phones on the baby's heads or anything like that.
Even deny them the eye contact, that by itself is, you know, I feel like it's not natural. But we'll be hearing from people in parts of Africa about their experiences of breastfeeding. But I sometimes in some cultures, like for example here, I see like sometimes breastfeeding is considered like a taboo, and you have to hide yourself. You feel I see mothers, you know, feeling ashamed to breastfeed in public. Is it something we should be ashamed of?
It's not something that should be ashamed of. It's something that is very natural. It is a function of the body, just like eating and drinking and walking. And I like to compare breastfeeding to walking. Honestly, a lot of times it's not something dirty like going to the bathroom. This is a skill. This is something that the baby needs to learn how to do. This is something we as parents, as mothers, need to learn how to do. If a baby was, developmentally at the age where they should be walking, they're watching us. They watch siblings. They're watching us to see how we're supposed to move their bodies, how they're supposed to put one foot in front of the other. And if the baby falls, what do we do as parents? We try to pick them up and help them know, do it again, you got this. And if we have a child that is not able to walk, we try to get to the root cause. We try to figure out what's going wrong. We're not going to just say, you don't need to walk, baby. Just lay on the floor.
Right.
And I think we should say it should be the same for breastfeeding.
I think that's mostly because they have sexualized breastfeeding, and it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with feeding your child.
But just back home growing up, mothers would just take out their breast and feed the baby.
Because it was so
no man would feel
normal.
Exactly. No man would consider it sexual. Nobody associates it with any
inappropriate behavior.
Yes.
So briefly, this is some props. Can you tell us a little bit about how to latch? Lily talked about, Simonish talked about the problem with latching. Can you show us briefly in about 10 seconds?
Okay. Well, in about 10 seconds, a favorite way I like to show new moms, new parents how to latch is what we call an asymmetric latch, or like a flip kind of technique. And that is basically, a lot of times we just kind of put the baby straight on like that. And then if they miss, what do? They bite down or kind of clamp down right on the nipple. So if we're doing a more of a flipping, we kind of use your thumb to kind of shape the breast, squeeze it, make it a little smaller if they have smaller mouth, to help make it more smaller and manageable. And when we point that nipple up, it gives the baby a nice contact in the roof of their mouth, so that if they do miss a little bit, instead of the tip of your nipple, it's more of the fleshy part of the breast that's a little bit less uncomfortable. And you can also help guide the nipple into the mouth, and they get more of the actual deep latching on.
So much information. I'm so glad you're here. You should have been here about a few years back when Well, this is our show for today. Thanks for our guest, Mili Karina, Chairperson of Kenya Association for Breastfeeding, who was with us on Skype, on Zoom. And of course, Whitney Dula, a lactation and postpartum specialist, the Mama's Dula LLC here in Maryland. Be sure to watch Our Voices on the VOA website at voaafrica.com and our YouTube channel, where you can catch up with the latest episode and top news stories from around the globe. Thanks to our Voice editorial and production team. On behalf of